This podcast is a proud member of the Unidentified Network.
Police in Las Vegas found themselves in the middle of a UFO mystery last month after
To us, big eyes. They have big eyes.
911, what are you reporting?
We got someone or something crawling around out here.
And we're back on the Mythical Legends podcast. So glad to be back. And we have one of our Mythical Legends co-hosts with us, Chris Alsford. How are you, buddy?
Not bad, Dan. How are you doing?
I'm very, very well. And that is the first time you've called me Dan.
It is, yeah. Kind of stuck. Maybe I got a stutter. I don't know. How are you doing, Daniel?
Yes, mate. I'm doing very, very, very well. Enjoying life. It's a nice sunny day outside, so I've been out. But now we've got an amazing podcast, and we've got a really, really good guest. I met him. Oh God, how long? I think it was 2 weeks. He will correct me when he comes on. I met him at the Great Florida Bigfoot Conference. He was a guest, and in fact, he was his booth was right next to mine. And can't wait to interview him. So, Chris, do you reckon we get him on, or do you reckon we make him wait for half hour?
No, let's get him on. People are much more interested in him than us.
Okay, please welcome to the stage, David, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sidoti.
Sidoti.
Okay, cool. So, mate, so glad to have you on today. I met you first on the live we did for the Great Florida Bigfoot Conference, but then we actually met each other, didn't we?
We did. We met at the Great Florida Bigfoot Conference this year. It was awesome.
It certainly was. So, before we get into any other business, how was the Great Florida Bigfoot Conference for you, and did you enjoy it, and how did the encounters portion go?
Oh man, I enjoyed it greatly. Always have a great time there. And like I was telling you before, we had an attendance of almost 2,600 people, which was awesome. It's probably the biggest one yet of attendees. So as you can see, we're growing and growing each year, and that was the fourth annual conference, which was a blast. I mean, obviously you were there, you saw how fun it was. Yeah, it was exciting. Like I said, I did the encounters portion. I was asked to do that by Marty and Nikki. And it was kind of, not to say last minute, but within the last couple weeks or so, I think it was. And they asked me if I could do that for them. I was like, sure, absolutely. So contacted all the folks so that we wanted to come on stage and talk about their encounter. So kind of did a pre-prep there and kind of went over some things with them and kind of make sure they were comfortable coming up on stage and talking about their encounters. And actually, we had one person on the day of the conference that had an encounter as a child, and she wanted to come and explain. She said she would love to come up on stage and talk about her encounter, which was the very first time she ever spoke about it to anyone else other than her parents. So I was excited about that. But awesome encounters. If you were there, if people were at the conference, so they got to hear everyone's encounters that they had. it was really awesome. It was great. And we like that feedback from folks like that at the conferences. So it kind of gives the audience that are there that are probably, came to the conference just kind of not really believing in Bigfoot or Sasquatch, kind of on the fence or what have you, to see that ordinary people are having encounters, and it's just not, people making stories up. So that's, that really helps the audience that are there see and understand, these encounters that people are seeing, and that, okay, well, maybe there is something to it, but it was great. It was awesome.
It certainly was, and it was loads and loads of vendors there, and say some of the people that we got to meet was just incredible to meet them all, and say Chris was actually going to come over, but then there was another opportunity that's come up. So, but Chris was actually going to be there, but we can definitely tell you that it was such an experience. I'm gonna say, yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go on.
I was going to say it's a big enough area, so as we grow, and Chris, don't be shy next year to come. It's definitely worth the time and money, if you want to plan for it. But hopefully, we'll see Daniel there next year as well.
That's all up to Marty and Nikki. Say there's and also love the t-shirt you're wearing, mate.
Thank you, man.
Very appropriate. So, to everyone out there, the Great Florida Bigfoot Conference was so good, but we are not here to hear about that conference. We are here to hear about the Skunk Ape, I think. Did I say that right?
Yeah, the Skunk Ape, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, whatever you want to call them. Down here in Florida, they, to me, personally, they have the unfortunate name of Skunk Ape. I really don't really like that word or that phrase of identifying these creatures. I like the, Sasquatch more than anything, or Bigfoot. But there's many Indian names that many Indian tribes call them different names, but they usually revert to the hairy man or something like that. There's literally hundreds of names that different tribes call these creatures, but of course Sasquatch derived from the Canada area, so it's kind of plays hand in hand with everything. But yeah, Florida has them here too, and they're very big according to eyewitnesses, that the encounters that they have here, that once we go out and investigate encounters in areas that they've been in.
Wow. So I'm gonna jump straight in then, and kind of you were starting to answer some of those questions there, so okay. We'll get more to them later. So first of all, David, could you tell us about what inspired you to get into this field?
Oh gosh, it started for me back in 1995. But before that, I was kind of interested in it as a kid. When in your age, that even younger. Kids back then, man, we were outside all the time playing. Usually from sun up to sundown. On the weekend, of course, during the week we had school, and of course we would still find time after school to play outside and investigate. I was like to investigate areas. Like we fortunately lived close to wooded areas most of our lives, so. So we would go out in the woods and play, build forts, just investigate areas and check out new things. So at the age around 7 years old is when I first saw the Patterson-Gimlin film, which I didn't know who these two guys were. All I knew, there's two guys on horseback, and there's a video. And of course, at that time, it was kind of an older video because it was done in '67. That's her, Patty, and so I was looking at that, and as a kid, I was like, "Man, wouldn't that be awesome if something like that really did exist out there in the world?" And it always fascinated me as a kid. So as an adult, fast forward to 1995, I was getting into the computer field, and so I was doing some searches online back then, which really wasn't like what we have now. But I did a search just for giggles of Bigfoot Sasquatch, and I found a bunch of information out there. I saw quite a few people that were actually winning, or actually in the search and for these creatures, and I was like, wow, these people are actually going out in the field looking for these things, researching and doing that. And that's probably when the fire started for me, because I was seeing all kinds of other people doing the same thing. And I was like, man, this is great. And so I started doing a lot of armchair research for a few years. And so it was really in the back of my head. I was like, man, I really want to, put this knowledge to work. And at that point, doing what I call armchair research, I was reading all kinds of reports. Now you don't have, back then they didn't have podcast shows like we do now, which would have made things a lot easier. But I had to get siphon through all these reports across wherever I can get them. A lot of them were BFRO website, some other websites that were out there. But I was reading hundreds upon thousands of reports. And then as I was doing that, I was noting to myself and then pen to paper these patterns that these creatures were doing, not just in one area of the country, but pretty much all over the place, all over the country, all over different parts of the world, that they were leaving these types of patterns that they would do, pretty much like how humans would react. So that got the gears moving for me, and I wanted to get out in the field. I joined up with a very large organization that was starting up at the time as well, back in '95, but I didn't get with them until later on. It was probably like 2000. Actually, it was right around 98, I think it was 2000 when I left that group, and then I decided to venture on and do my own thing. So that's actually when I started the independent Sasquatch research team, was in the year 2000. And so basically it was just myself. And then someone got in contact with me that actually lived here in Lakeland. His name is John. He was contacted me and asked me questions about the subject, and he asked me if I was on any kind of groups or teams, and I said, well, matter of factly, I just started my own team, so he wanted to join. So at that point, it was two of us, and then one thing led to another. Word kind of got out, and other people wanted to join. So that's how the ISRT started coming out. And also, I created the team because back then in 2000, early 90 or late 90s, there was a lot of differences on people as far, they weren't really wanting to work together. They kind of wanted to keep everything locked down. And I found that counterproductive with the research in general. So I said, because there's the one group I was with, they had too many strict rules for a lot of things. And if you were to find evidence out there in the field, they would lock it down, and it wouldn't be your evidence now. It had to be the team's evidence and all that. But so I kind of wanted to shift gears and not be that way, because a lot of the feedback I was getting from a lot of people was negative from some of these other teams. So I wanted to create a team that wasn't like that. It was more working together as a group, and getting other people involved that would want to help get to the information that about more about these creatures. So I saw that coming together, not only with our team, but here within the last 8 to 10 years, I've seen a lot of people now kind of following suit, working more together. So it kind of did a about face sort of thing with the whole research field. Is that, hey, we can get a lot farther if we all work together, no matter where you're at, who you're with. It's all helping everybody help each other, and that's the point of this whole research is working at all of us working together to get answers of these creatures. And so we've been doing this. I've been doing this for almost 30 years now. I think this will be 29 years I've been doing this. So, but the team itself was 24 years. So we've been
When
together.
you get sucked into that rabbit hole, there's no coming out.
Absolutely.
No coming out at all. Chris, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, Dave, I just wanted to ask you about this video footage that come out. I think it was 2013, and I know Mississippi is a couple of states over. Are you aware of, what I'm talking about? The it looks like a skunk ape ripping the bark off a tree, probably feeding on the grubs. What's your take on that?
My take on that is to me it looks real. He's the video. I remember the video. I played it many times over my head and watched it many times. Those are that creature's in a what I call a cypress hammock, kind of like an oak hammock. Trees that have, it's just basically a clump of trees that are all together, and these happen to be in a cypress swamp. And what it is a cypress tree that has a hollow part of the tree in there. It may be rotting or getting old or has some disease to it. Anyhow, it looks like it has a cavity in it. Well, a number of things can grow within inside the tree like that. A lot of snails will grow inside those, or what have you. At any rate, this creature, this guy that videoed it on his cell phone. When I first saw it, I was like, okay, well, let's play that again. I probably played it maybe 20 or 30 times and slowed it down, and all this. But what gets you, if you ever been around these trees and tried to break a piece of it off, it's very, very hard. I mean, it's a hardwood tree. And this creature, as you're listening and watching the video, if you turn up your speakers very loud, and you can hear this thing just popping this tree apart, like it's trying to get in there and trying to get into whatever it's trying to eat. And I'm assuming it's snails, because a lot of people that are around these types of trees, and like a lot of hunters, a lot of people say a lot of snails will stick to the inside of it. It could have been anything, whatever this creature decided it was looking for. It was probably foraging. But that popping, that breaking off is, I mean, you have to have some massive muscles behind that to be able to break it apart like that. And for it to be making that much noise. Now, the hunter, from what I understand of the storyline behind him, he was hog hunting, I think, or deer hunting. Anyhow, he was in a stand and he heard the noise. I guess it was behind him. So he kept hearing this noise out there. So he got down and walked back in there real quietly. Now, this guy's a hunter. He's dressed in camo, because you can tell when the creature stands up, the guy bolts, right? Well, I just slowed the video down. His phone captures his bottom of his pants, which were displayed, camo pants. So he was out there hunting. So he was investigating what that noise was that he was hearing. And but yeah, when this thing stands up, and you can tell it's got the typical silhouette of a Sasquatch, this typical color of a Sasquatch. I'm assuming in Louisiana, the swamps are just as wicked as they are down here with moccasins and all kinds of rattlesnakes and what have you. Probably most likely alligators as well. So for something or somebody out there faking a video like that, it's highly unlikely that, and to me, especially during hunting season, I'm assuming he was hunting during hunting season. So, people out there have guns, so you wouldn't dress up in a suit and draw attention to yourself, because you never know who's gonna might shoot at you. But I think that video is I would say at least 90% real. Given a little buffer there, just for could be a hoax. But to me personally, I think it is a real Sasquatch foraging in the Louisiana swamps.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's very rare to kind of get actual really good footage of Bigfoot, and I think now I haven't seen this video, but I think from what you've explained to me, David, is that if these trees are quite strong, to kind of pull one or break one, it takes some muscle. So I think that's where that question could come of kind of, well, if a human can't do this, then what is it? You've got to kind of weigh it up.
To me, it would be very difficult. I mean, just the pieces I was, seeing that it was grabbing a hold of and just popping it like it was nothing. I mean, you would have to put like both feet on the side of this tree and just really put your weight into it to try to break it off. And this thing he was just like pop, looking at it, he'd just throw it, popping it, so to me, it's just unlikely that a human could be doing that out there,
Yeah.
So that's why I kind of lean more towards it's got to be one of these Sasquatches out there.
Wow.
That's a cool video.
So
I love that.
it kind of moves on to my next question quite well, actually. Have you ever had a Bigfoot or Sasquatch sighting or experience or encounter?
Well, I had that question a lot at the conferences, not just this last one, but other conferences. But and I tell people, no, I have not set eyes on a Sasquatch personally, but I've been around. We've all been in our team. Have been in areas where we were getting things thrown at, whistles, knocks, evidence. The jabber that they do, actually recorded that one night, as well as whistles and tree knocks as well. But actually, I have not was fortunate enough to get a sighting of one my own self, but others on our team have. So I just keep on hoping that I'm in the right place at the right time, or these creatures, will present themselves as they're doing, they're knocking or whistling or what have you. So I'm always optimistic about getting my own encounter here shortly. So hopefully,
David, one day, mate, one day you may go, yes, I got it.
And we've got a, quote unquote evidence of what these, what we find out there in the field. That can't be done by any other human, which is strange. We find a lot of prints out here, a lot of tree structures, and again, like I said, audio recordings is really big. We get whistles and yells and knocks and all that, so it's pretty active here in Florida.
Wow. And then going on to whilst doing your research then in Florida, what's the most compelling story that you've heard yourself of someone seeing a Bigfoot?
Well, I tell folks that for me personally, the is the most aggressive one that I've heard, and that goes back to a gentleman named Steve and his encounter that he had here in Florida, and it's on our website, and it's basically actually a link because his encounter is so long, to put it on our website just in text format would be almost like a book. So basically, it's just a link. He was actually on a podcast show, Sasquatch Chronicles, and I happened to hear that episode, and when he said he was from Florida, and this happened on the east coast of Florida, and actually, I said, "Oh gosh, I got to get this guy's information, or he's got to get mine, and we got to talk, right?" So fortunately, I talked to Wes Germer. He does Sasquatch Chronicles in Washington State, and I told Wes, I said, "Hey man, you got to give this guy my information so he can give me a call." Because it was a pretty fresh encounter within a few weeks, and so I got a call from Steve probably the very next day, and talking to him over the phone over an hour or more about his encounters or his encounter he had. Um, but that was the most aggressive one. The poor guy, he was just fishing at the time, and he heard about Bigfoot and stuff, but he never really put two and two together. So um, really didn't put all that much into it until this happened. He didn't know what he was looking at actually. Um, but this thing had charged him from a shoreline when he was on a kayak, and he fell back in the water and jumped up, and he's yelling at this thing. All he could say was, "Go away, bear, go away." Um, and long story short, with his encounter, he had a little bit of PTSD for a good long while after that. He was having nightmares. He was seeing, this face looking at him all the time, and it was just excuse my language, pissed off look, because he apparently had messed up its hunt. So I think he was hunting some smaller pigs in the area, and as he was fishing and kayaking out there, I think what happened was that he scared these pigs, and as he's watching these pigs run on the shoreline, because he was only maybe 25, 30 feet from the shoreline, um, he was looking at them, and then he saw a hand come down and pull down a palm frond, and he goes, now he's looking at this face staring at him. And he said as he was retelling the story, usually over the phone it's kind of difficult to read body languages, but you can hear people's tone in their voice over the phone, and you can hear him reliving it because he was getting very nervous. His voice was shaking a lot, like he was just reliving the whole nightmare over again. So I knew this guy's not fooling around. He's not pulling anybody's leg. He's telling me the truth because, it really deep down bothered him in a way where, he was having, nightmares, cold sweats, waking up in the middle of the night because of this, what he encountered. And I encourage you, your audience, to go to our website and look in the encounter section, or you'll see a link on the page there, and there's two links to his story, and it's called the title of it is it had a look like I would just want to kill you. Okay, and then there's a second link, so part 2 of that, and that one's more, to me, it tells the story of how deep the rabbit hole goes for all this. It gets really interesting really quick because a friend of his actually takes him back out to the location to see if they can find evidence of this creature. So I don't want to give too many details away because it's pretty awesome to sit there and listen to his encounter, and then listen to the part 2 of that encounter. But if for your audience, and there's certain agencies here in the States, probably all of them. If people are wondering if these things really exist, there's a lot of agencies out there that would put a lot of time and energy to cover up something. So if they're indeed trying to cover up something, then that tells people like us there must be something to it. Then, if these things don't exist, then why are you spending all this time and energy trying to cover something up? So that would be my probably the best encounter yet that I had to.
Sounds it really does, and I don't know about you, Chris, but I'm sat here quite kind of let's say starstruck by that.
I'm going to looking forward to listening or reading that one.
We actually went out. We actually went out to the location because he when as a fisherman they do GPS locations. So he actually got a GPS location. This area was an area he's been hunting in for like 20 years, so he knows the area like the back of his hand. So I tried to get him to come out with us, and he goes, I'm not ever going back out there. He goes, if you saw what I saw out there, he says you wouldn't go out there either. And he tried to do it later on when we had Adam Davies with us, and he met us at the boat ramp, and he says, "Man, I want to go." He says, "I just can't do it." He just had to. He backed out. He just I can't do it, Dave. I can't get out there. But yeah, we went out to that location. It is very, very thick and protected out there too, as well.
Wow, that kind of tells me that he's actually had that sighting there, and for all the researchers that would kind of, he's had some sort of physical effect to it, so it kind of changes the story a bit when he's actually affected by it. To everyone out there, don't forget to go to David and his team's site, because I can almost tell that it's a very, very good website, and I definitely want to go and have a listen to that encounter because it sounds very interesting. We are go on.
No, I was going to say that there's also on our YouTube channel. There's a few videos out there you can pull up, and that's on our website too. It just links right to our YouTube channel. There's quite a few videos there. I don't put a whole lot out there because, to me personally, unless we have something good, to present out to put up on our channel, I usually don't put up anything unless it's really good or in a good area that we're investigating, like this area. So you can also go up there and you can on that YouTube channel, and you can see how thick and dense this place is, because it's to me, I think the area in general where this encounter happened, there's hundreds of acres out there, and to me, I believe that could be more than half, maybe quite a few families living in that area of these Sasquatches.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Wow.
Oh.
It's just intriguing to hear what kind of the rest of the parts of the world is experiencing, because what you really only hear about kind of your research area. We only hear about ours, but it's really interesting to kind of converse and go, so to everyone out there, we are going to take a very short break, and we're back after with a couple more amazing questions. We'll be back in a second.
for half an hour on Saturday afternoons and for a quarter of an hour on Wednesday evenings. The world's only show about hard science, weird shit and surreality. And it's co-presented by an anthropomorphic chicken. Be there or be square.
Such a brilliant ad. It's such a good ad. It so is.
That was awesome.
That's our very, very dear friend Jonathan Downs. So he's runs an amazing podcast. And so moving on to the second part of the interview then, David. I'm going to now kind of move off of the Florida bit and go on to more of your thoughts. So my first question for you is, when it comes to Bigfoot, what do you believe this creature to be? Flesh and blood, paranormal, supernatural? There's many different camps, as René Holland likes to say it. So thoughts?
Well, when I first got into this, I definitely believe that these were flesh and blood. I was on the bandwagon with everybody else that these are like an unknown ape creature. But the more you delve into it and the more you talk to other eyewitnesses, it's interesting because when you talk to eyewitnesses, they're kind of standoffish too when they have an encounter at some point. It could be as little as they saw something cross the road and ran. Others, it could be very detailed of an encounter of, that, they saw this creature is walking through the woods and then all of a sudden it just started cloaking with the cloaking word. But they could still see it walking through the woods, but it translucent, itself. And there's just those sort of things that you hear about. So as time went on, I started thinking to myself, these creatures are flesh and blood. They have to be, because they're picking up sticks or picking rocks up and slamming on trees. And they're building structures. In one book I read, which I can't remember off the top of my head now, actually a little girl was had befriended these creatures, or they kept coming to her house, from what I remember, and she would just go out and play with these creatures at night, and these creatures would take them back to their area where they were living at. And I got to find out what that book was, because it was really interesting. But she actually eyewitnessed a death, or one that was dead, and that these creatures were actually burying it, the dead infant one. So I can't remember what happened to the infant Sasquatch, but the little girl remembered that these things, either the father or the mother they were digging a hole to bury the creature in. So,
you have to find that book.
We need that
find that book.
Yes. I'll have to go back and find out where that book was and which one it was, because I read so many books on the subject. But that was interesting. It was one of those things I kind of put into the filing cabinet of what these creatures do. Okay, and people say, well, do they bury their dead? Well, yeah, a little girl actually eyewitnessed doing that. Okay, so all these things that these creatures are doing, it's kind of like when I tell people, it's like putting a large puzzle together, and you have millions of pieces of this puzzle you have to put together, and so nothing's off the table. So that's how I approach this field of research. I had to shift gears at some point during all this and say, okay, well, are they apes? Are they some form of ape or something like that? Or are they more human? Because, they act and do things human-like, So at the end of the day, at this point, I'm thinking personally to myself, I think they're like a subhuman type or a creature like that. Of course, without good DNA study and a lot of DNA being analyzed, it's hard to come to a conclusion of what these creatures are. You can only go by eyewitness reports, the things that you collect in the field or see in the field, and not visually, analyzing in the field of what these creatures do. 'Cause, you know, a lot of people get kind of vague on their encounters, but then there's some, like I said, some people get very detailed. So when you investigate people's encounters, you know, so you have to ask them more questions over and over again, or maybe ask them the same questions, because sometimes they leave details out that you have to really dig for, like what the creature was doing at the time. There's many facets to asking questions to these people, because as they're reliving their encounters, they're going through the emotions as well. So in between those two of telling and the going through those emotions, you try to get as much detail as you can from them, because I've had people come back and say, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you this is what the creature was doing also. They'll come back and say they found it very odd. So in my belief, I think these, they could be some sort of subhuman type of creature, or somehow down the chain or tree, they mix with human DNA. So, so that's my thoughts on that.
Wow. Yeah. And say, I think that's a very, very interesting opinion, I'm gonna say, because I've never heard one like yours, but it makes sense to have kind of that human and ape on the same. Do you get what I'm saying, Chris?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. It's just a lot of talk about relic hominid, and as you called them subspecies, but it's a diverse species. I've heard that term before, but to actually have the mix of human DNA it's a new angle, a new rabbit hole to fall in.
Right. Yeah. The prints that are found in the United States anyhow resemble of a human foot, regardless if they're missing a digit on their feet, as far as the toe. But a lot of the prints, you can ask Jeff Meldrum on this as well. They very much look like a human, but much larger. Of course, the bone structure is a lot different. It's got the mid-tarsal break in it. And people for years, when Jeff Meldrum was talking about the mid-tarsal break, people really didn't understand what it was used for, or what that meant. Or why do they have a mid-tarsal break? Again, you go back to the eyewitnesses, and people say that they saw this creature walking upright, and then it went down on all fours.
Yeah.
Or it went up a mountain on all fours. Actually, one of the guys on our team actually got a photographed casting of a print that they did, where one here in Central Florida went up on an embankment, think of it like a big ditch embankment, where this thing had went up, and they casted a track that was up on the embankment, and when they pulled the cast out, the foot was kind of like this, getting my camera. It's kind of like that, and the toes were splayed out, but the foot was kind of bent like that, and inside you can see the toe mark. So that foot acts, that mid-tarsal break acts like a hinge on the bottom of the foot, if you will. And from what I understand from eyewitness encounters, it says they have witnessed these things running and then going down on all fours. And he said these things move just as fast on 2 feet as on all four. And so you can that mid-tarsal break is probably used as leverage, for a lot of things.
Yeah.
But as far as the prints go and the handprints that are found, they basically look like large human hands and feet. So if you look at a gorilla or a chimpanzee or something like that, there's obvious differences between the two and a Sasquatch. So that in itself kind of leans more, okay, well, the ape issue isn't really holding water, so to speak, because it doesn't quite fit into that realm. So a lot of answers, or a lot of questions that need to be answered on a lot of things. But and and the strangeness of these creatures also. There's mind speak, and you hear about mind speak. You hear about these things cloaking. You hear about a lot of things that these creatures. Some of them, not all of them, but a lot of them. Like they possess these certain abilities that they can do. So, are they flesh and blood? Are they supernatural, or are they both? Do they have the ability to do a lot of things that humans can't do, or maybe we could do them? And nowadays, we've grown so far away from that spectrum of being able to do those things again. But these creatures probably held on to that,
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things you can think about on these creatures, and and I always tell people the best evidence is the eyewitness encounters, and really investigate the actual people that come to you with encounters, and it's our job to try to ask the right questions and ask all the questions, right or wrong. Ask them. Did a creature do this? What have you? So so that's my take on it. I mean, after almost 30 years, I can see where I've started and where I've in the middle of it, where I had to change my ideas a little bit, because the ideas in the beginning weren't fitting of what's happening in the now, so to speak. So, so you kind of have to evolve yourself with this field of evidence that's presented to you.
Well, that's what research. That's what it's supposed to do. Is
right.
Evolve your thinking about it. Yeah.
That's what Edison said. If it was called, if we knew everything, it wouldn't be called research, right?
So, whilst listening to you, I'm on a similar track. I'm gonna say I believe it's flesh and blood, but I'm open to the possibility of paranormal. Now, I'm kind of in the middle of them both, and I believe it's flesh and blood, but I am, if someone shows me or I have an experience myself, then I'm going, of course, but that's why I want to keep it open, not say definitely one or definitely another. Having that balance is good.
Yeah, and that's that's the thing is with science. If you look at the science part of it, you have to keep an open mind on everything. Put everything on the table. If it's something weird, you don't quite understand it, leave it on the table there. Don't brush it off, because you may have to come back to it again. Then that's part of science. But if you're, a lot of people are in it they just want to see one, and get the thrill of it. That's another story. But if you're really into this and you want to get the answers, it's, to me now, being in it so long, it's great. It's still exciting to see the evidence that they leave behind. But now I think what we're looking for is we're looking for more answers. We want to know, what these creatures are, to the point to where we need to actually spend more time in the field. Some of these people actually, not researchers, but people that have encounters with these creatures or a relationship, so give or say, with these creatures over decades, of and they don't want people messing with them because, of whatever reason. But it's just intriguing that there's so much more. Even if you discover that these creatures exist, and the lid gets blown off, say, yeah, these creatures do exist, they really do. But the answers to that is still open. Okay, what are they? So that delves deep into more information that we have to uncover. But the word paranormal, it means out of the norm, right? And if you look at it, like I look at it, is people say, oh, it's paranormal. Well, paranormal is out of the norm. Is it out of the norm for us, or is it out of the norm for them? We may be paranormal to them because everything else is normal to them, what they do. If they are
very true,
if they are able to, like Ron Moorhead's book, the quantum physics, which actually is proven to exist and be able to be applied. Are they able to use quantum physics for a lot of this, to be able to cloak, to be able to be there and then disappear, or travel in between dimensions, which, is possible. So maybe they have a better handle on it than we do, or we lost the handle years ago. And we can't, we don't have the abilities to do those things anymore. So, there's a lot to look at here.
Yeah, definitely. And go on, Chris.
I just wanted to pick up on what you said there about them, what we perceive as special or unique powers, or paranormal powers, and whether we've lost it. And it's funny when you look back how many times somebody said, trust your instincts, or my spider senses were tingling, or I think we ignore it. I think it's still there. Your brain's telling you there's somebody watching you, but we don't listen anymore. But yeah,
it's we've all got it where it's like we go, is this right? It is our body kicks into kind of that awareness and goes, is this, or is there someone watching me behind my back?
Right. It's that intuition. That's what they call the third eye, the sixth sense, or the pineal gland, which we all have. So when we had a tracking class for our team, because I wanted our team to learn how to track these creatures. So in 2010, we had some guys from Atlanta, Georgia, come down and give us a tracking class. They were with they're all retired military, and they were working with search and rescue for many years. And somebody came to them, I think it was the BFRO, asked them if you can search or track humans, can you search and track Bigfoot? And they said, well, if it has a foot, we can track it. So they started getting into helping other researchers, learn how to track humans. So we had their class as well. And in that class, he's a very gifted gentleman, and the whole team, there's four of the guys. And they also all do remote viewing. I don't know if you ever heard of remote viewing or not.
Yeah.
But that is a skill that, from what he said, anyone can do it, but it takes a lot of hard work and discipline to do it. But it can be done. And a lot of tribes in South Africa were using it for centuries, for tracking animals and so forth. And it wasn't, I think it was back in the 60s, I think, is when the military started using remote viewing for certain things. And that's how he got involved in it. And to my surprise, I mean, it works really well. And but has to deal with that sixth sense and the those abilities to be able to do that. So it's harder for us, whereas some it comes naturally. Like one of the guys on his team, he said he's better than him, and it just happens to be that some people can really pick it up and do it a lot better than others. So, but it's definitely doable and can be done.
And I think that's where that's like a power. I'm going to say that we have that ability to kind of go, that ain't right, or I don't know whether to trust.
It's probably like a muscle. The more you use it, the more pronounced it becomes, the more refined you get at using it. So
I think we've probably used it way back, like we had a need to use it more, and not as like we do now. We have so many things that are come easy to us now. We don't have to do that. We don't have to forage for our foods a lot of times. But I think it was a necessity at some point in our life, and we just, over the centuries and years, we just got away from it, unfortunately. But apparently, these creatures have these abilities. People are seeing these abilities during their encounters, so there's got to be something to it.
So, David, mate, I've really enjoyed this podcast. It's been very, very, very intriguing. And Chris, you can agree with me on this. We've discussed some very different topics that we haven't discussed on the podcast before. So I have one final question for you, unless Chris has any more. No. So my last question for you is going to sound simple, but what's next? What's your plans and what's your team's plans to do next?
Well, our team, they're usually going out and checking out their own areas or different areas. Actually, I have a couple of guys that go out of state and check areas out that they had encounters, or their friends have encounters, and they have much larger areas that they can research on. So they're all the time doing their research, and we all get together and collaborate on their findings and so forth. Me personally, I want to, since I've done a lot of done a lot of the survival issue of kind of like Les Stroud is my hero for survival skills. I kind of personally want to go out in some areas by myself on several days, maybe a good week or so, or start with a good week and just do some solo areas just by myself, because you tend to get a lot of a different encounter if you're by yourself or if you have more people with you. So usually if you're by yourself, you have a more close encounter type of encounters with these creatures. I do believe that you would have to spend more time in the field or where these creatures exist to be able to get closer with them. So what I would like to do is possibly do that, get into an area where there's a lot of activity going on and just stay there for days on end and just try to be part of the environment, and see what happens. And if I get some reaction, then possibly just continue that. And I always say this is kind of like the Jane Goodall approach, with the gorillas. As you saw, you saw the movie about her, and probably read the books about her. She spent extensive time in the field, and a lot of time before these creatures could even get close to her and get that trust built up. I think the same is with these creatures. Just going off some of the past reports that I've heard, that these people gain a trust with these, and they actually can get really close to these creatures, and sometimes families of these creatures. So I think that's the key factor. I don't think going out in a large group is, as great for checking out areas to see if there's signs of these creatures. But if you're wanting to get close and get up close personal encounter with these or these creatures and really get to know them for what they are, I think you're going to have to do a solo on it. So, and a lot of people think about that and like, I don't know if I could do that, but but it takes a lot of gumption, a lot of bravery, and all that, and a lot of know-how, and a lot of survival skills. You have to be prepared constantly, especially if you're out by yourself. You have to do the what ifs. I personally carry a backpack with everything I need in it. If I'm stranded if I have to be stranded for several days, I carry a beacon with me in case something happens and I need emergency help. I can just hit that beacon, and a helicopter's going to show up, or somebody's going to show up and pick me up. So you always have to be prepared. I'm very big on that. I know I haven't expressed a lot of that here in this podcast, but a lot of doing this, I always tell my teammates, to always think, outside the box, always be prepared. You never know what's going to happen in your situation. Even if you got 2 or 3 of you out in the field somewhere, someone gets hurt, what are you going to do? Are you prepared for that? Because everybody wants to make it back home the way with all the bits and pieces they came with, right?
Still attached,
yeah.
And say, I think that's a brilliant piece of advice to end on. It is you've always got to think that yes, you're out there looking for this creature, but you have to stay safe yourself. And I think that's what a lot of researchers that's their main focus is we are out there to research, but we can't if we're not safe.
That's
so,
right. You
want to
get back home.
Yeah. So, David, it's been wonderful having you this evening, our time.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's been awesome. I always, I love coming on these things, talking about Bigfoot. I wish I could do it for, a lot longer, but if I had my choice, I'd be talking about it all day.
Yes, but it's been a great having you on the podcast, and Chris, you would agree that it's been the topics that we've been speaking about have been very, very different.
I think the final point was the important one: prepare for the worst, but hope for the best.
Exactly.
Definitely. So to everyone out there, I hope you have enjoyed this podcast today. Don't forget to go and visit David's website. Don't forget to subscribe and like this podcast. And don't forget, David, I need you to find that name of that book for me and Chris. To everyone out there, just a quick reminder, in 3 weeks' time, we have our Cryptid Conference UK. Would love for you guys to come. I put some more tickets on last night. So anyone who wants last minute tickets, they are free. It is a free event to get into. Come and see myself, Mr. RPG, Brian King Sharp, and come and see Dr. Jeff Meldon come and give a talk via online. But come and see everyone. We would love to see you. And if you have experienced Bigfoot or something else, even local to us, big cats, Loch Ness, anything, we are called Mythical Legends Podcast for a reason. So any encounters, experiences that you've had, or if you just want to chat about cryptozoology or Bigfoot or anything, we will be happy to chat. So contact us at mythicallegends29@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. But thank you, guys, and we shall see you in our next podcast. Thank you, and bye-bye.